Welcome back on Big Deal, and we are discussing the various implications of artificial intelligence, which is advancing fast, and what are the ethical risks. So, Irene, you were talking about the groundwork being done for the ethical risks and also the regulations around AI. I wanted to understand, is there a mismatch between the scientists as well as the policy makers, which generally is the case?
Well, it's a great question, and I think you get at the heart of the problem, not just of this problem, but I think many of the problems that we work on.
Yes.
Too often we work in silos,
yes,
and we don't have the forum or the opportunity to get together and share our knowledge, but also share our points of, disagreement,
yes,
or maybe where different views and challenging each other in terms of maybe what the policy people recognise that we haven't seen as scientists,
right,
and vice versa, us to educate the policy people that do you realise that this science could lead to X, Y and Z,
right,
therefore you need to start thinking about your policy now.
Yes.
I think that, again, most countries, and again, visiting here, I think the engagement and the opportunity to create conversations between people,
yes,
is improving. It's so much better than when I started life as a scientist over 30 years ago,
yes,
but it could be better. It
right,
could be better, and so I think media play a huge role in this, getting people together, getting them to have workshops, have forums, have places where they just have space and
yes,
the bandwidth to think a bit differently. It's absolutely vital.
So dialogues like these really go a long way in bringing and meeting the minds together on one particular purpose. So, Mr. Shroff, when we talk about the regulations, in the absence of an AI-specific regulation, in India, how are we tackling these issues currently? And what do you think the policymakers and the government is thinking on this particular aspect?
So the conversation has just started. And in fact, this discussion today is taking place in the backdrop of the GPAI conference that is taking place in Delhi, where India is the chair.
Yes.
And everybody is kind of really focusing on this. There is currently no formal framework, but I think India has taken a position, and India has currently taken the position that while this is a topic on which the risks need to be managed,
yes,
it is more an opportunity than a risk at this point of time, and that we will catch up with the risks as we go along. I mean, you can also look at this both from a north-south perspective as well. The global north is looking at this more from a risk perspective,
yes,
whereas the global south is looking at this entire AI opportunity more from a point of view of growth and innovation as
yes,
well.
Yes.
And India is playing a role in trying to kind of bridge both the blocks, because we kind of, in a way, belong to both, and have been taking a cautious approach. And the rise of India has coincided with the fact that India is increasingly becoming a global leader in these conversations, becoming more of a rule maker rather than a rule taker as well. The G20 declaration, the Delhi declaration, also had a piece on this, and that kind of flowed into the Bletchley declaration as well. So I think the conversation has started. It's about balancing the risks and the opportunities as well. We don't, as India, have a formal law on this, but there is a likelihood that the forthcoming Digital India Act may have a piece on this. My personal view is that it needs to be a standalone legislation. You can't tuck it into a general technology legislation as well. And the framework will have to be completely reimagined. But to be fair, these conversations are very live and robust at this point of time.
Right. So as long as we are all working towards the solutions, and as the technology is developing, because in the digital world also, digital taxation, digital regulations, all of these are really evolving in tandem. And even COP28, where people are trying to come together for a solution and taking everybody's inputs in mind as well. So I think this is all evolving. But Professor, if I can ask you, when you see the technological development of artificial intelligence, where do you think we stand right now? Where have we reached, and what could be the potential going forward?
Well, the potential is limitless. Now that sounds a trivial simple expression, but I think we haven't even begun to think about what this could do for us.
Yes.
So as I often say to students, what it affords is this extraordinary ability to give you more time to think creatively.
Yes.
Because it can take on a lot of the sort of dull mechanical work. So why sit 2 days programming something in Python or MATLAB. Some of your listeners will be programmers and know that.
Yes.
When you could just have, you know, an AI algorithm do that for you.
Yes.
But your job is to think about what's the interesting question I want that computer program to answer for me that's going to make a contribution to health, wealth, whatever it might be. And just let the machine do it. So in fact, it releases a lot more of your creative capacity. And I think once people realise that's the potential of it, then the sky's the limit in terms of how it can help us
Yes.
and live alongside us.
Yes.
I think where the fears come in, rightly so, is when we maybe move to a place where decisions are taken more in a more automated way.
Yes.
And we've lost the agency ourselves about who made the decision, why was the decision made like that, etc.
Yes.
Now that can be dangerous,
Yes.
and I think we should, again, in our thinking and our philosophy and our regulation, be very mindful of the central role of human agency in understanding why a decision was taken a certain way, which one can argue about in our current format of governments and things, and you can democratically vote and change things. Whereas when you move to a place where more and more of the decisions about how local government changes or decisions around what might be executed in terms of healthcare, etc., are done in a more automated way with nobody quite understanding why the machine has taken that decision, that's a dangerous place to go. So keeping human agency central, and having, you know, the surety that we understand that the decision making and the creation that these AI tools will increasingly offer us don't limit our ability to, again, have our own sense of direction about how we want to take our countries forward will be very, very important.
I'm glad you made this point, because the biggest controversy around machine learning is how is the coding done and whether it's biased.
Yep.
So that's something that we are yet to, like, you know, tackle, regulate, and come to a solution on. Finally, Mr. Shroff, if I can ask, while we have many use cases, while this technology is very useful, what about a lot of job creation, which now will become automated? And therefore, you will need a very advanced, you know, vocational skill set for getting a job. Do you see that as a threat, especially in a developing country like India, where job creation is so important?
So it is certainly an issue. And the impact on the labor markets is going to be very important. But whenever there have been breakthrough technological innovations, at that time it has always been accompanied by a fear of loss of jobs.
Yes.
But what has typically also happened
Yes.
is that a lot of new jobs get created, a new genre of jobs get created. And I think that is probably what's going to happen here as well. Because at the end of the day, you are releasing kind of drudgery, or you're releasing a variety of, you know, time that you spend, and reallocating it to new use cases as well.
Yes.
So I'm not pessimistic about it, but life is going to change. I think I don't see any business or any profession or any area of human activity that is not going to be affected by this. Take my own you know, law firm, for instance,
Yes.
or any professional service organization. We're going to be deeply impacted by this in a very fundamental kind of way. And that applies
Yes.
in your business as well.
That's right.
So it's this is an evolutionary moment for us, I feel.
Yes.
And of all the issues, I think the ethical issues are probably the most important. Science, of course, but if I were to kind of rate the issues in order of importance, I think the ethical and philosophical issues are number one.
That's right. What a way to end this discussion. And this is the thought I would like to leave our viewers with, because tackling the technology and innovation, but responsibly, that's going to be the task for the regulators and lawmakers as well. Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much, Cyril Shroff, for joining us in this riveting conversation. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Big Deal. Thanks so much for tuning in.